Turkey has condemned the Israeli government's decision to close its operations in Israel. Now, Israel's cabinet unanimously voted to shut down Al Jazeera in the country on Sunday, immediately ordering the closure of the news channel's offices and banned broadcasts. Now, Al Jazeera says this is not only criminal, but also a suppression of the free press. Let's speak to Thembisa Fakude, Senior Research Fellow and Director at Afrasid. Thembisa, thank you so much for your time this evening. Before we even get into this particular conversation, right now we're running a breaking news story that Hamas has accepted the ceasefire proposal. Your reaction to that, given the fact that we still don't even know right now what they've agreed to?
Well, the reaction is that Israel has kind of watered down that agreement or acceptance. So until Israel accepts the offer or the deal that is being celebrated right now in the streets of Gaza by the people of Gaza, we can't really say much. So we have to take it with a pinch of salt because Israel has said no. My view is that Israel will not accept anything but victory, whatever that is. So the fact that you have the people of Gaza celebrating, it's not a good message sent to Israelis because they don't want to come out of Gaza with their tail in between their feet, so to speak. They want to see victory, according to Benjamin Netanyahu. In other words, they want to bombard, shoot and kill the Gazans to submission. So I wouldn't celebrate yet until we hear what the official statement from Israel is going to be.
What does it mean then for these ongoing talks? It sounds to me like it might just be a long road ahead again.
Well, first of all, these talks I don't think are sanctioned by Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu would like to see the long war because he knows after this he is likely to face courts and likely to go to jail in Israel. So he wants to kick the can down the road. He wants to prolong this war. This is why, for example, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, while they were negotiating and Hamas and Israeli negotiators were almost about to reach a deal, he decided to go and shoot and kill three sons of Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, was based in Doha at the time, including his grandchild. Last week, when this talk of an imminent ceasefire was muted by everyone, he decided to issue a statement saying, truce or no truce, he's still going to go and invade Rafah. So this is a man who's not really interested in ceasefire. We know, for example, a couple of hours ago, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were told to move from the eastern part of Rafah towards the Mediterranean because Israel was planning to invade that part of Rafah. So it still doesn't make sense. You have the Israeli forces planning an invasion. At the same time, you have this statement coming from Cairo, sponsored by both Qataris and the Egyptians, that there is a ceasefire.
Let's talk about the decision to shut down Al Jazeera's offices in Israel and the impact that this is likely to have on the channel's reporting on the story.
It's not the first time that Al Jazeera's offices have been shut down. Al Jazeera's office has been bombarded. If you remember, they bombed the whole office block of Al Jazeera in Gaza. Other countries such as United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Bahrain, and others have closed down the Al Jazeera offices. So there's always a way of circumventing these kind of blockades. As long as there's Facebook, the Israelis are likely to continue watching Al Jazeera. By the way, the reason why Al Jazeera went to open an office in Israel, it was for the Israelis to have a chance to speak to Al Jazeera, to voice their concerns, and also have an access to Al Jazeera, which was seen as being one-sided. And that was one of the main reasons why Al Jazeera decided to open an office in Tel Aviv and invest in that office. So what we see now, we see a Benjamin Netanyahu who wants to continue with his brutality, and by the way, try and hide the ongoing protests of hundreds of thousands of Israelis who are calling for his resignation every weekend in the street of Tel Aviv. And it's only Al Jazeera that has been covering that story. But importantly, he shuts it down just days after Al Jazeera was awarded one of the highest accolades by the UNESCO, awarding and recognizing the Palestinian journalists who are continuing to cover the war on Gaza.
And you've worked there, of course, and worked for Al Jazeera. And I wonder what impact are these ongoing events going to have on not only employees at the offices, but also those on the ground. I mean, I think, for example, about that bombardment. I think about the killing of Shireen Abu Akleh, for example, and you think about all of this ongoing attack. And I wonder, what impact does it then have?
Well, it's a step of approval. For many Al Jazeera journalists who are used to this kind of shutdowns, it's another step of approval by a government that's hell-bent on continuing with the genocide. So they'll continue doing what they have to do. In fact, I think many of them are inspired to continue telling the story that's supposed to be told. We've had this kind of situation, if you remember, in 2011 in Egypt, when the Egyptians decided to shut down the office of Al Jazeera in the middle of the Arab Spring. Al Jazeera did find other ways of broadcasting, and it remained effective. So now, with the advent of internet and alternative multimedia and social media platforms, there are many, many other ways of broadcasting other than the normal broadcast using satellite.
Some say that this is a warning shot as well to other media houses who are covering that particular story in Israel as well. And how much of a threat do you think that it is to other channels?
It is a threat. Israel has already killed over 140 journalists. Now it's shutting down offices of journalists. Chances are next is going to be the mass arrest of journalists who are based in both Gaza and the West Bank. By the way, there are very few of them who are currently there because Gaza is shut down. So the journalists that are reporting on what's happening in Gaza at the moment are Palestinians. But this ban applies to mainly Tel Aviv, even though, of course, these are occupied territories of Israel. It means, therefore, that they've got powers and authority to shut down broadcasts also in the West Bank and in Gaza. But at the moment, this is mainly in Israel. So it is intimidating to many other journalists who are currently covering. It sends a message that they have to adhere to Israelis' wishes and demands. Israel is already working with a number of journalists who have since been embedded with the Israeli forces to cover the current war that's taking place. The only, of course, major organization that refused to be embedded or was not invited by the Israeli forces has been Al Jazeera, and this is why Al Jazeera has been treated the way it's been treated, with its journalists being arrested and their families killed.
Quite a disturbing development, especially when you look at what is happening in Rafah right now, even this evening as well. A lot of uncertainty for many people. But thank you so much, Thembisa, for your time. I appreciate it. That was Thembisa Fakude, Senior Research Fellow and Director at Afrasid.